Job description: no pay, leftovers to eat, violence and the threat of sexual abuse. Hardly tempting. This woman wouldn't have been tempted.
Sometimes I lost my mind.
And in case you thought it couldn't happen in a bastion of liberal democracy like London...
It literally is people chained to kitchen sinks, chained within the kitchen, paid £5 a month, often beaten.
She said, you have to be dead, dead.
The women in this film are survivors, escapees from a hidden world of domestic servitude. Part of a centuries-old global trade worth $32 billion a year. It's slavery, and only now is the world waking up to their plight. Note Fatma's arms in plaster. She can't even blow her nose on her own. How she got those injuries we'll come to later. We found Fatima in Kenya, her home country, newly escaped from domestic servitude in Saudi Arabia. Her story, which we'll tell in part through reconstruction, is typical of thousands of women lured by a bogus promise of good money, good jobs. She went to Saudi with her cousin, found herself working against her will in an Arab household.
They started to harass us. They say, you're black, you have come here only to eat and to fulfill yourself.
So did they just shout at you, or did they?
Yes, they were shouting. They were shouting. Sometimes even they want to beat us. We were starving because there's too much work there in the house. When it comes to the food, they never give us food. Their children, after they have finished the food, then they tell me, you can eat this one. When it comes to time of sleeping, we only sleep in 2 hours. They never give me my salary. Then I ask, I need the money because my family, they don't even hear me, or they don't know if I'm alive or dead. Then they say, no, your money has been kept in bank. You just work until 2 years reach, then we'll give you your money.
After 4 months, believing she'd never be paid, she fled.
I saw the door open and ran. But when I ran, I didn't know where I go. I don't know, I was very mixed up.
Finally, she found a police station.
They say that if you want to be helped, you just help us first. Then we will help you.
What did they mean?
Yes, I asked them what is the meaning of that. They say that I should use my body to them. Then I got very scared and I ran.
She had nowhere to go except back to her employer, back to abuse. And Fatima is one of the lucky ones. Journalists in Nairobi have uncovered stories of girls who've recently been returned from Saudi dead.
The number of cases as of the girls who've come back in coffers into the country, I would put them at 3, though they could be more, because once the girls have passed away in Saudi Arabia, it's more or less like a private family affair.
Fatima and her cousin ignored rumor that Saudi might be dangerous. Her mother had worked there for 11 years. Fatima focused only on her dream of being a teacher.
No, we just heard the stories here that Saudi is bad, but I never listened to them because my mother was already there.
In Nairobi, there are agents only too ready to help such women. But what they offer is a scam.
What goes round that one friend has gotten a job in the Middle East and they're doing really well, and they all flock to the local recruitment agencies in major towns.
Perhaps 1,000 girls unwittingly chase only 100 fake visas, obtained from a corrupt official. All the girls pay $50, 2 months' wages for health screening and administration fees. For 900 girls, bad news is guaranteed.
Not all of them that make it to get jobs in Saudi Arabia, and they're told that they've got chronic illnesses, that they've got HIV/AIDS.
They're sent home, and the agents pocket their fees. We sent an investigator to meet an agent, posing as a student desperate for housekeeping work.
Wanalipana pesa ngapi ukishapata kazi? 1,600 kwa mwezi. Yaani Kenya Almani ni 16,000. Na nikitaka kurudi nyumbani utanirudisha? Hapana. Tegemea na kadiri na vile mwenyewe nijichukulia.
For many agents, if their business is trafficking people, any such conversation is a chance to make money.
Need to know nitakupa pesa ngapi? Mnanipatia visa?
Nitakupatia visa.
Do I need to pay you any money?
Okay, tunalipisha something. Ni wewe ulikuwa unasemaje?
I need to know nitakupa pesa ngapi?
Our investigator's job title on her passport will need changing, from student to housekeeper.
Lakini occupation inasomaje?
What?
Occupation pale.
Nilikuwa nimechukua kama student.
Nenda na hiyo passport kwa migration. Waichange kwa sababu watafikia something ya 500. Lakini hizo tuache hapa. Mimi kituma kwa sababu mimi ni sambo. Wacha nikuonyesha hapa.
Fatima was not consulted about the change to her official job title, but it was only on arrival in Jeddah that she discovered the scam's sting in the tail. The promised jobs don't exist.
We arrived in his home. After that, when we reached, they said that from today we are going to work here as a housemaid.
Their escape routes were cut off. Doors were locked. Their phones and passports were taken. It's reckoned 3,000 Kenyan women share this predicament.
The Kenya government is increasingly getting concerned. They work 24 hours, no overtime, no time of their own, and they do jobs that there is not even specified in their contract. It is a region that has been used to slavery for a long time. We know a lot of our Africans used to go there as slaves. So we are hoping that that mentality within the Arab world is still not there.
But all this doesn't just happen in Saudi. It happens in the UK too. This woman, we'll call her Margaret, arrived in London from Tanzania thinking she'd be helping her employer on a brief trip. Instead, she found she had a new and unwanted job, skivvy and masseuse for her employer's parents.
Hawakuwa watu wazuri, watu ambao hawajali. Yasmin yule mama alikuwa anawapa ndege wawa ndege na mikate ile expire anawapa ndege. Kwa hata kama Ludido ametupa hii mikate ni mizuri, tuchukua na wewe mkate huo unakula. Chukua matunda, sema hapa matunda gharama sana. Wewe sio kama Tanzania, matunda hapa kila kitu hapa bei iko juu sana, very expensive. Kwa hiyo
she slept on the floor. Soon she became ill.
Nilikuwa naumwa na kichwa mara kwa mara, na saa nyingine nimeumwa mguu, saa nyingine naumwa labda.
She insisted she needed to go to hospital. They gave her Panadol, an over-the-counter painkiller.
Siwezi, kwa hiyo ninaomba turudi, akanikatalia.
And did they pay?
Hapana.
Nothing?
Hapana.
In Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, Fatima had returned to her employers after failing to find help from the police. But eventually she refused to work. She was told she was going to jail. In fact, it may have been a detention center.
I sat there for almost 2 hours. Different women come and see me. All of them were white.
What were they saying to you?
No,
Nothing?
nothing. I was worried. I thought that they were going to kill me.
But she was taken to a different house. A new employer, new humiliation.
She started harassing me in different ways. She don't want me to wear the dress. She told me that to wear the jeans, you see, the short one. And yet there are children, the big children there, you see. The way I wear those clothes, it was too short for me. One of his children was harassing me. Touching me, and I don't want. When I tell her mother was saying, don't disturb me. She beat me. Sometimes I lost my mind.
Allegations like this lie at the heart of protests Kenya has made to Saudi Arabia.
We have told them that they must face the problem right on, because they cannot deny the fact that in a lot of their households, most of these girls are actually sex slaves. Some of them actually are second or third wives. Unofficially, in most of these households, they have become playthings for the sons of the Saudi families. We have told them this candidly, that they need to look at it.
In London, the Metropolitan Police are taking action. They've opened a new unit, led by this man, targeting human trafficking and domestic servitude.
It literally is people chained to kitchen sinks, chained within the kitchen. I think if you look at some of the victims that are involved in this, they come from very poor countries. So they come from countries where they have no hope of earning money, where actually their lot in life is that if the crops don't grow in the garden, then they're not going to eat. And I think when you have sort of wealthy people in those countries, often they think about buying, bringing these people to the UK, housing them in whatever way they house them, they're actually sort of being altruistic and looking after them, rather than realising that, it's actually a big abuse of power.
The pressure group Kalayan campaigns on behalf of the 17,000 women like Margaret arriving in the UK each year, and hears many stories of low-level but continuous abuse.
We know that many employers tend to see the domestic workers that they have in their own home as subhuman. They don't recognise them as part of the same species. An example of that is that many employers often refer to their workers as a dog or a donkey or an animal or a pig or something deeply dehumanising, and this is constantly reinforced.
Margaret finally found a way to leave her London employers. After argument, they let her go to church, and someone put her in touch with this support group, where they never expected to be helping women fleeing slavery.
I could not believe it. I couldn't believe that another human being can actually go to such an extent and treat another human being like that. I never thought it happened in Europe. I never thought it happened in Great Britain. I think it's very much widespread, because these are not the only girls. They've been talking about other girls whom they've met in other households who are in the same predicament.
In 1998, a Kalayan campaign helped win a minimum wage and the right to change employer for women like Margaret. Those rights are now threatened under plans to cut unskilled immigration. New visas would tie the women to a single employer.
They wouldn't be recognised as workers in the UK, and at the end of their 6 months they'd have to leave the country, even if their employer wanted them to stay here. And if an employer wants to pay their worker no money, well, the worker doesn't have any protection to challenge that employer. Then really the British government are going to be in danger of legalising slavery in the UK.
Under current rules, Margaret was able to take her employers to industrial tribunal. She was awarded £58,000 in damages and unpaid wages. But her troubles aren't over. Her employers haven't paid up, and she wasn't crying wolf about feeling ill. she's just been treated for a collapsed lung due to TB.
Mpaka saizi sijui ataisha lini. Kwangu mimi sijawa sawa. Labda sijui hapo nitakapolipo ndo nitakapolisia kwamba niko sawa.
At their bungalow, her employers didn't want to talk on camera, but they said some of her claims were false and they had no money to pay the damages. She's taking a case to the European Court of Human Rights. For Fatima in Jeddah, there was no rescue. She claims tensions were about to boil over.
I didn't see her coming. She pushed me and said, "You have to be dead, dead, dead." It was the third floor upstairs. When I was in the air, I rotate myself because I thought when I'm going to fall like this, I will break my head and even one of my. So I rotate myself. I don't know how, but I come in this.
The employer's driver called the police.
I saw my bags there outside. I lost my memory.
She says what her employer told police was a lie.
She said that I jumped, I was running away. She even gave my clothes there down. Yes, she said that I was running away. And that I can't run because they were locked everywhere. And how am I supposed to run? And I know she gave me the salary. And she have my passport.
Her wrists and arms were broken. In hospital in Jeddah, she was visited by Kenyans. She was returned to Kenya. The US State Department's 2009 Trafficking in Persons report condemns Saudi Arabia, saying, "There is no evidence that the government criminally prosecutes or punishes trafficking offenders. Victims are often deported without receiving assistance and with little or no compensation." Kenya is frustrated. It wants to work with the Saudis to introduce tighter regulation of visas for women like Fatima.
We want to know exactly where they are going, how much they are going to be paid, what type of work they are going to do, what is the duration in terms of working hours. The Saudis have to get their act together, or else the rest of the world is going to isolate them in terms of labor issues. And they require the labor. I can assure you, Saudi Arabia needs the labor.
The Saudi embassy in London refused an interview and gave a statement. It says, "The kingdom is committed to stamping out the evil practice of human trafficking wherever it is found, and will apply the full weight of law to prosecute and punish offenders, and is a signatory to UN protocols to prevent human trafficking." Fatima, back with her mother and sisters, is waiting for an operation to remove metal pins in her arms and trying to rebuild her life, still unable to comprehend the people who exploited her.
They were praying, they were reading Quran, they even fast, but I don't know what is inside their heart. I'm in my country now, I'm happy with my family. What I want is when I get better, a job so that I can still support my family.